Podcast. I'm a big film nerd, Everett.
And I'm Emerald, and I'm engaged to a nerd.
On this week's episode, we'll be covering two movies. First up, we have Godzilla Minus One, directed by Takashi Yamazaki.
And my pick this week was Dream Scenario, directed by Christopher Borgli.
And in addition, for the Godzilla Minus One section, we are going to have a special guest this week, a good friend of mine from film school, Michael. He works on the Nullified Take podcast, so look them up wherever they are. I watch them on YouTube, and they do a lot of different stuff, but particularly reality TV, and they're really great, so you should check them out. All right, let's get into it. Alright, so my movie this week is Godzilla Minus One, directed by Takashi Yamazaki. And as mentioned before, we have a special guest with us today, my good friend from film school, Michael. How's it going, bud?
Hey, Fred, I'm doing so good, brother. How are you?
Oh, we're great. Alright, so yeah, you have seen this movie, obviously, otherwise we wouldn't be talking about it. And from the messages you've sent me, I gather you liked it quite a bit.
I loved this movie. You know, I'm a massive monster fan. You know, as you know, Everett, I believe in monsters like Bigfoot, Loch Ness, Wendigo, you name it, I believe in it. And monster films have just always been my thing, but it's quite hard to find a really good monster film that sort of covers all aspects. But I feel like Godzilla Minus One knocked it out of the park. Had, you know, great characters, great story. Godzilla was terrific, you know, not just some washed down American version. So yeah, it was fantastic overall. Yeah, no, I also really enjoyed this. I like a good monster movie from time to time. I like movies that are just fun to watch. And this was definitely that. I know, Emerald, you had not ever seen really any Godzilla before this. What?
And
yeah, I've never seen Godzilla. I didn't know it was gonna be so silly. I thought it was gonna be like a really serious action movie, but it was fine.
Fine? Fine?
Yeah, this will probably be more of a YouTube episode. I don't have that much to say.
Yeah, from my end, I really liked, I think we talked about this a little bit in the car as we were driving home. The design of Godzilla, I liked that it was very classic Godzilla in design. He had the rounded nose and the giant thighs, very thick. But I also really liked, and I think the scariest part was his first appearance. Not to, you know, spoil too much, but he starts small and gets big, as Godzilla does in pretty much every Godzilla property. And when he starts out small, he's so nimble, and like his arms move in more than just 1 degree of motion. You know, he doesn't just do the up and down, and it was spooky.
I think the spookiest part was his eyes. Like, the rest of him looked like the silly original version. I know you don't like that I'm saying he's silly, but looked like the original version. But his eyes in this were very realistic. It was very creepy.
Yeah. I love those eyes. I could stare into those beautiful eyes all night long, you know?
Oh, I'm sure you could. But yeah, so it also, the director of this, Takashi, he wrote it as well, and he did the visual effects in large part on this movie, which is super impressive when you see them. There's a few shots that might be a little wonky here or there, but no more than any Marvel movie that's come out in the last 5 years. Like, exactly. I would put this on par. And that's not to say, oh, Marvel, fire your 200 animators and just hire one person to do all your work. That is to say, if you have a clear vision, you know what you want, and you have the time to work on it, you can make something amazing. Yeah. And I think this movie really showcases that clearly this director is very passionate about traditional Godzilla stories and still making them relevant to modern audiences, and not just, our classic Western Godzilla we've been getting recently where he befriends everybody and is the hero, and or just is very boring and kind of just there. But yeah, I overall I really enjoyed this movie.
Something I do just want to jump in. I loved the fact that it was a horror, and they stuck with it. All good.
Yeah, that's our cat. As the obligatory mention in the episode, that apologies that our cat is screaming in the background.
All good.
But yeah, no, it definitely had a more tense vibe, like not an action movie. Yeah, and I think something he's now climbing on top of us.
Sorry.
Thing I really liked about this is it was unabashedly a Japanese movie. It was very very much in their style. The way they the way they talked, and just like the emotion and the type of movie it was very reminiscent of any movie I've seen out of Japan. And I appreciated that. I don't think it's necessarily my preferred style. I've never been big into like anime or anything. But I completely get why some people are. And I think this movie does a good job of bringing that to the big screen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm someone who normally doesn't watch anime. Like, the only anime I've seen is like Bakugan and Beyblade, like stuff like years ago when I was just a wee lad. But something that I did love is that it definitely had a very big anime sort of vibe to it. Like, I've seen some short Godzilla animes on YouTube, and it felt like that, but in live action. I feel like they really did nail just the horror aspect of Godzilla, and also like what real people would be feeling in this moment. It was just absolutely phenomenal.
Yeah, I think in no Godzilla movie prior to this have I ever stopped and just thought like, wow, imagine if that train car just went flying by my head.
Yeah.
Whereas this movie, there's something about like the camera work and the editing just like grounded the movie in the people's perspective, and you see a giant ship go flying overhead and it's like, oh my god, what do you do?
Yeah.
Like, you will never beat this thing. And I think that comes across really well in this film.
Oh, absolutely. Something that I quite enjoyed as well is that, I don't want to get, too much into spoilers, but there's a shot in the trailer where, Godzilla sort of following their ship in the ocean, and it's like just like the scale as well of just this giant thing. Like, you could feel like, the characters just being like, what on earth are we going to do? Like, there's nothing we can do.
The only way out of this is luck.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
We're not going to get out of this. All right.
Yeah.
Sorry if our voices changed. Our microphone just died. Anyway, as we were saying, this movie's really good.
I'm happy to discuss some spoilers.
All right. Spoilers for Godzilla Minus One. Godzilla kills a lot of people, like tens of thousands of people in this movie. It's not one where they shy away from, oh yeah, they destroy the whole setting, but everyone's fine. Like, they all made it to a hospital.
They're literally like, how could we make World War II worse for Japan? What about?
Literally. There was, like, I watched this film again last night with my cousin, and we're very much into World War II. We watched World War II in colour, like we read old stories and whatnot. And, we looked at each other and we're like, this is just a couple years after, the atomic bombings of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They finally rebuilt, some cities, and then Godzilla just shows up. Like, what? Yeah,
and like literally they're having characters live in the wreckage of homes from the war, and then they finally get it rebuilt, and then Godzilla just comes stomping through. And I think, again, I I obviously am not from Japan and am not super up on their politics and stuff, but from this film, I can gather people were not happy with the Japanese government at this time. There are a lot of comments about, we won't do this for our country, we're only doing this for the people, we're not doing it for the government or whatever, or blaming the government for wasting lives during World War II. And so this is very much a movie about like, okay, you're at your lowest point, and then something comes along and pulls you even further down, and you can either choose to just wallow in that or band together and try and fight and save yourselves, because you can't just expect the government to reach in and pull you out, which for a silly monster movie is quite a profound message.
Yeah. I mean, it's something I was thinking about. What's like the government's perspective from all of this? And I do think, now this may be a bit controversial, maybe like a hot topic, but I do think that maybe there was some right for the government not telling the citizens about Godzilla coming so close. Because think about a whole countrywide panic, like...
Yeah,
it would be nuts. Like, how do you maintain
and I mean,
that?
you look at anything that governments announce now, and people, it just causes so much, and especially after you just went through so much trauma, they're probably hoping they can figure something out, or he'll just swim away, or like panicking, and so they're just like, no, keep it hush hush, the people are finally rebuilding and getting to resume life, we don't want to just throw another curveball. But at the same time, there's a giant monster that's going to come step on you, so like maybe you should leave the city.
Yeah, I was telling him, imagine being one of those people who bought like a small farm in the middle of nowhere to get out of the big city dangers, and next thing you know, a freaking dinosaur stomping on your house.
He comes to shore in like the countryside near Tokyo and just absolutely destroys this poor tiny little farming village. You can hear the dog like sprinting away and barking. It's so sad.
It really is sad.
So we've talked a lot about Godzilla. I guess we should at some point mention there are humans in this movie. And the main guy, Takeshimi, I think
something like that.
Apologies. He was a kamikaze pilot for the Air Force in Japan, and chickened out of his mission
and faked plane damage to be on an island so he wouldn't have to die.
Yep. And then he lands on this island, and they're starting to kind of realize he didn't actually have any issues with his plane, and he's a deserter, or at least not obeying orders at this time. And then Godzilla shows up out of nowhere and starts attacking them, and they send him to go shoot Godzilla because he can operate the plane with a big gun on it. And he once again chickens out, and everyone dies.
Yeah.
And that is our main guy. Yeah, amazing.
What an opening. Fantastic.
And then he returns home, and immediately, I think was it his sister? Because she had the same last name, so I'm gonna guess sister.
I don't know. She calls, or like they call her auntie to their kid, but I think that's just because she watches the baby a lot, so I don't know.
Good friend and or sister. He comes home, and she's lost her entire family.
All three of her kids. And blames him for chickening out and running away. She's like, you were a kamikaze pilot. You should not be standing in front of me. You didn't do your duty. Now we're all dead.
Because that one plane could have made the entire difference of
it would have changed everything.
Of the end of the war.
Yeah. And so, this man is not doing great. And then suddenly he gets handed a baby in the street out of nowhere, and kind of becomes responsible for the baby and the woman who hands it to him, because she's just trying to survive and has no family, and this baby isn't even hers. Someone else handed it to her. And so they kind of form this little family. They get jobs. They're living the good life. And then and he's having horrible dreams and PTSD, and then all of a sudden Godzilla appears again and starts destroying a bunch of ships, and he has a breakdown about it.
Yeah. I mean...
Yeah, and yeah.
Oh, after
You
you...
can go.
It's like, at one point in the film, I forgot her name, but it's the lady that, had the baby. She asks him, what is causing him, like, so many, like, nightmares and horrible PTSD. Can you imagine, like, explaining to someone a ginormous dinosaur just came out of nowhere, obliterated everything, and then just completely disappeared, for a couple of years. And, she believes him. It's like, you know what? We need more people like that, because if someone told me that, I'd be like, huh? Like, what?
Yeah, no, for sure. It would be like if you came and you were like, hey, I just saw Bigfoot.
Yeah.
And I'd be like, okay, yeah, I've heard that one before, Michael.
One day.
But also, that main guy is super messed up. For him to, look at his now adopted daughter in the eye and be like, I'm not going to abandon you, and then immediately go on a suicide mission to fly a plane into the mouth of a dinosaur? Nah, dog, because he didn't know he could eject. Spoiler alert, he does.
Yeah, so in the end, they devise a plan, which was, the perfect balance of science and stupid. And
Well, that's because you didn't even know that people could get the bends until a week ago when I told you.
That is not true. I just had not heard it called that before. And so basically they strap a whole bunch of gas Freon, I think it was, to Godzilla and sink him to the bottom of the ocean really, really fast, and then have a bunch of inflatables tied to him that inflate and then raise him up really, really fast. And their plan is that. And then as a failsafe, the pilot is supposed to be able to lure him to the correct spot. And the pilot guy, the main guy, secretly puts some bombs on board. And his plan is to just fly into its mouth and explode. Which, fair enough. What else are you going to do? And so in the end, the guy who fixes the plane for him, who's back from the original island and all backstory nonsense, puts in an ejector seat from him, which was kind of a big talking point throughout the movie, is that Japan was just throwing lives away, making everyone do suicide missions, and not ever giving their pilots ejector seats and stuff. And so this is, made by the people instead of the government. So they put in a nice ejector seat, and he ejects out. And then also the wife lady, who's not his wife, very clearly gets absolutely yoinked by atomic Godzilla heat ray blast, and thrown into a giant pile of rubble. And then she's back, and her skin is unscathed except for a couple bandages.
Well, yeah, because she's the pretty main character.
Yeah.
Babe.
Exactly. Exactly. You have to let gorgeous people be gorgeous, Everett. I
guess that's fair.
I've never seen you in action, Everett, but I assumed that after falling off a cliff, doing a bunch of Tom Cruise stunts, you still look fine as hell. It's all based off assumptions. So.
I appreciate that. I do. But, yeah, so I think... the humans at no point are a bad part of this movie, but I think particularly for Western audiences, they will be the weak part of the movie. I think they yell very quickly. They go from just talking at a normal volume to all of a sudden yelling everything that's going on. They can just sometimes they make things that sound like they sound like they're joking, but they're being completely sincere. And I think you can either just choose to look at this movie as really dumb and silly, or look at it and just enjoy it for how earnest and heartfelt it's trying to be. And yeah. I know you saw it as silly.
I really liked the smart doctor guy. I thought he was funny, and the kid was funny.
Yeah.
And the monster was there.
There was a lot of great comedy lines throughout this film as well. Like I like
Yeah.
that the moments where the director knew that, you know what, this is a really serious situation. I'm going to throw in like a very comedic line. Like at one point, the captain is like, "Nah, we're gonna, you know, drive the boat, you know, right past Godzilla. 'Cause it's gonna be fine." It destroys like the boat right next to it. It's like, okay, never mind. We're gapping.
Yeah, no, it had me laughing a lot more than I thought going in, and like not at the movie, but with the movie.
Yeah.
Like it was definitely the like boat captain to me was hilarious. He just every line was so funny.
Yeah, he was.
And his facial expressions were amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. The baby was also one of the cutest babies I've ever seen in my life. She's so stinking cute.
Absolutely.
Yeah, she was adorable.
Yep.
But yeah, in the end, they kill Godzilla, but then he also weirdly breaks apart into chunks. I didn't quite get that.
Well, they exploded him.
Yeah, but then he like crumbled instead of like bursting out or like burning away because his heat ray inside burnt up from the inside or something. He just like all of a sudden turns into like, it's like the effect of like when you turn someone to stone and then you break them in other movies, and then he just kind of crumbles apart, and then one of his crumbly bits starts to regenerate.
Are all of his crumbly bits going to regenerate? Maybe that'll be the sequel. Is going to be 8,000
Exactly.
Instead of Godzilla minus one, Godzilla plus 200.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's like a whole math equation for these, these titles.
Yeah. Do either of you know why it's called Godzilla Minus One?
They said in the description that, like, the end of World War II was one of the worst times for Japan ever, and then for Godzilla to just come out would be like putting them in the negative, so it was -1.
Yeah.
That's at least what I read when we were buying our ticket and I was reading the description, but I don't know if that's for sure what it is.
Yeah, because it's not, like, explained in the movie, and I thought -1 was going to have something to do with it, but yeah, that makes sense if that's the case.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I actually read the same description as you, Emerald, so yeah. No, I
Nice.
think that's why it's called -1, yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it's called Godzilla because there's a Godzilla creature in it. I thought
you
I'd
know
throw that out.
You might be onto something there.
So what would you rate it? We'll start with you.
I would rate it a 10 out of 10. So I'm someone, as said, I love monster movies, right? But my problem with monster movies, especially with the recent Godzilla films, is like, oh my gosh, it's Godzilla. Everyone run for your lives. Oh, look, there's another monster. Why don't we team up with Godzilla to take down this other monster? And then we're best friends with Godzilla. And there's like every, like the last couple American Godzilla films, even the recent Godzilla versus Kong, it's like, it's meant to be Godzilla and Kong, but it's not really Godzilla versus Kong, which I really didn't like. And even just other monster films in general, I feel like have been quite disappointing. The last good one I've seen is probably Peter Jackson's King Kong, because that I rate 10 out of 10 anytime, any place. But this one really took me by surprise. I loved the score, the acting. Godzilla itself was terrifying, especially in the opening scene. Yeah, I'd have to give it a whopping 10 out of 10.
Wonderful. I'm going to go a little lower. 8 out of 10.
Hey!
You don't want to hear what she's going to say.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, 8 out of 10 for me. I mean, maybe that is harsh for what this movie is. For a monster movie, yeah, it's probably 9.5, 10 out of 10. Like, this is exactly what I wanted it to be. At the same time, I don't know how often I'm actually going to end up rewatching this or returning to it. If you talk to me in a year's time, I may or may not remember this as one of the great movies of this year.
Oh, okay.
I'm not sure if it's quite at that level to be a 10 out of 10.
In this, the year of the Barbie movie?
Yeah, see, I'll remember the Barbie movie forever. So.
I would give this a 4.
A 4? Oh my gosh.
I'm not a monster movie girly. And I wasn't quite laughing with the movie, if you catch my drift.
You know, Emerald, I was so excited to meet you one day, but like, you know, don't invite me to the wedding. I'm not coming.
Oh, yeah. But all right, that's Godzilla Minus One, and thank you, Michael, for coming on. It was great. I can speak, and thank you for coming on, Michael. It was great talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me on, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much.
戦争が終わってないんです。今度の戦いは未来を生きるための戦いなんです。Godzilla Minus One.
Okay, so I didn't really know what I wanted to pick this week. I had a lot of options, and the only thing I saw about Dream Scenario was a small clip with Nicolas Cage and I don't know how to say his name, Noah Centineo, I think. I saw it on TikTok, and then I looked it up, and it had a good rating. I didn't know anything about it, so I figured, sure, let's watch it. And it was weird.
The best thing about this movie is it is interesting. The worst thing about this movie is it's not interesting in the right way.
Or, yeah, it's...
We've talked, like, on the drive home from the theater. We're recording this only like an hour after we got out of the theater, but we talked about that movie for a large portion of that hour because it's intriguing.
Yeah, and it's kind of disappointing, I feel like, more so than some of the other movies we've seen that don't stick the landing, because of the fact that, like, the premise is really, really interesting, but the follow through is just weird. It's almost like they were trying to make a few different movies or something. I don't know. Like, the overall plot goes all the way through, but there are certain times that I was convinced the movie was about to end, and then it felt like another hour would go on, and that happened like twice during the movie. And it's not that long of a movie.
Yeah, it's like an hour 40.
It just feels really long and awkward.
Yeah, in particular for me, the end 15 minutes and the whole sudden shift in what the movie's about, kind of, in a way. It's still about the same thing and the same characters, but it suddenly takes on a much more, like, a statement on capitalism as opposed to just society in general, and that kind of didn't mesh well for me. It just kind of suddenly is about this vaguely tangentially related theme, and just, yeah, so that didn't come together for me. It also does not, how do I say this, like, there's a main character, and it literally doesn't matter who that is.
Yeah, and they don't grow at all.
Yeah, and that's kind of the point, is it's supposed to be just an anybody, but it doesn't. But I feel like an everyday man would have been so different in this scenario. This guy is very particular because Nicolas Cage is playing him in a very particular way,
and he's
yet
not nice.
Yeah, and that has no real consequence on the movie. And if that was the point, it does not come across clearly because it feels very tied to who he is, and yet at the same time it literally does not matter. They could swap him out for 8 million different Nicolas Cage interpretations of this man, and it wouldn't change how the movie flows.
Yeah, I don't know. I didn't care for the characters. I didn't care for the ending, but, like, the initial plot and getting the movie started was very intriguing. So it's like, it's weird.
Yeah. Yeah, and I definitely, like, if you're into weird movies and you're into movies that you can, like, peel apart layers and discuss what did this mean and why did they choose to do it this way and why was this done in this style versus the way other scenes were done and stuff. This movie's full of that stuff, and I don't think anything happened unintentionally. You know, I think this is exactly the movie they were trying to make. I just don't know if that's actually a good movie or not.
Yeah, and I don't know if it was particularly for us. I think this is a movie that you could ask me, not even in a year, whether or not I liked it. I'm pretty sure you could ask me 2 months from now, and I will have completely forgotten that this movie exists.
Yeah. And I think there's definitely a message in here that how to put this politely. People who do not agree with my political and moral compass and such, and my view of the world, I have heard them use arguments about, like, cancel culture and fame and things like that this movie seemed to be defending that viewpoint at times, and then at other times it wasn't. And so maybe it was trying to be a neutral observer on this topic. But for me, it just felt weird. I didn't know where I stood, like, kind of morally on this movie.
Where the movie even
or
stood.
Where the movie stood. Like, there's a good chance, like, you know, as I said to her, I was like, we could put out a video that said, like, oh my gosh, this is the best movie ever. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, you guys are, like, so, like... stupid and like that's such alt-right culture or whatever. And then on the flip side we could say, oh, we didn't really care for this movie, and people go, but it's such a great satire and commentary on how bad these people are. And it's like, wait, so where does this movie lie? What is it trying to say? I don't know.
We'll go into it more in spoilers, but yeah, it was weird.
Yep.
All right, going into spoilers for Dream Scenario. This follows Nicolas Cage. He plays a professor at a college, and he is basically kind of a nobody. It doesn't seem like his kids care for him. His wife is pretty neutral towards him, and he starts noticing people are noticing him, and through whatever reason, it's never explained in the movie, a large majority of the world has started seeing him in their dreams, whether or not they've met him. And at first he thinks it's kind of funny. He does like a quirky little news interview, whatever.
And at the start when he's appearing, it's usually like, oh yeah, I was having a typical dream where I start floating away and you were just standing there. Or, oh, I had a dream my friend was dying in a car accident and you just walked by and did nothing. Like, he's just there. Yeah.
And then so he becomes like famous as this guy who is in everyone's dreams, and it's, you know, just like this crazy thing. He goes super viral. There's people who want him to do like commercials and stuff. But then the dreams that people are having start to turn violent or like weird and sexual or whatever, and people hate him. And it seemed almost like a commentary on like anyone could be canceled by cancel culture, and like we shouldn't be listening to that. But also the only celebrities I know who have gotten like permanently canceled have done some truly terrible things. I feel like the internet might get mad at you for like 2 weeks and then you get out of the news cycle and no one cares anymore. So it just seemed like a stupid message.
Yeah. And the other thing, like, it almost wanted us to feel bad for Nicolas Cage that he's getting canceled. But at every turn, he is
the worst.
Awful.
Yeah.
Genuinely awful. First opportunity to cheat on his wife, takes it.
Yeah.
First opportunity to yell at people in public, takes it. First chance to do anything, someone's like, hey, sorry, we have a bunch of students that are feeling really uncomfortable because literally every night you come in, murder or rape them in their dreams, and they don't want to take your class anymore. And he starts screaming and yelling and being like belligerent about it and complaining about cancel culture. And the movie almost seems sympathetic to him about that. And it might be trying to be a commentary on those types of people who think they've been canceled for nothing and just don't understand. But in this case, he literally didn't do anything. He's just sitting there in real life.
So both of us thought that because he was a nobody and in the dream he was doing nothing, that like as his emotions changed, maybe the dreams were changing, because like like the girl who he has an affair with was the first one to have like sex dreams about him. And so we kind of thought like, oh, well, maybe that's a thing. Or like the murder dream started when he started getting angry. But literally the dreams had nothing to do with him at all. He could have been anybody. And it was just like weird. And then, yeah, I don't know. At the end, his wife leaves him and he's alone forever. The end. But like also, and his wife deserves to marry someone who likes her and doesn't cheat on her. So
yeah, probably. And then also at the end, out of nowhere, it suddenly just turns into a commercial for a minute for a fake product where you can now advertise directly into people's dreams. And so because he kind of proved that there is a collective subconscious, some guy took this idea and poured money into it until they finally like cracked it or whatever, and now they can come sell you new sneakers or play a song for you to advertise it in your dreams, which like could have been an interesting angle for this movie, but instead it's tacked on for the last 10 minutes
and has nothing to do with it and makes no sense.
It's not like he was materialistic or really wanting commercial. I guess he was fighting against being in commercials, and then the thing he did became commercials, but again, he didn't do anything. I don't know. It's just a little messy on that front.
Yeah. And it's such a bummer because, like, the idea of someone suddenly appearing in everyone's dreams and all this stuff could have been really interesting and cool, and it just fell so flat.
Yeah.
It was just such a disappointment.
Yeah. And even if, like, the way he behaves in the real world doesn't impact how he appears in the dreams, such as is the case in the movie, like, you can take it at that value, but, like, there should be something tying him to this, or make the movie truly an exploration of some rando suddenly being thrust in the limelight. This is not some rando. This is a man who's seriously kind of psychotic and disturbed and he does not behave rationally in 90% of scenarios he's in. And
even up until the final moments of the movie, he never apologizes genuinely for anything that's happened. Like, he does a stupid apology where he's like, I'm the victim, this has all gone wrong for me. But he could have been like, you know, I should have addressed this in the beginning. Like, it's not my fault that I'm in your dreams, but also, like, you know, it's just, it was just so, he never took responsibility for anything, and he was the worst.
Yeah, so I think, like, there's a version of this movie, make him, like, a minor celebrity who suddenly gets thrust into the limelight and, like, has a real issue and, like, whatever, or if he's a nobody, have him struggle with something with fame, but, like, he's just belligerent and annoying. And if you're going to do that type of character, and I know older people can be, but 90% of people I've met who behave like this are obnoxious teens or early 20s.
Plus, like, if he actually genuinely, like, did everything right and still... Sorry, our dog is having a dream in the background. But
wake up then, Lily. Wake up. Baby girl, you okay? You making it?
But if he if he genuinely did everything right and was a good person, it could have been like, yeah, I could see how cancel culture is hurtful, but this guy deserved it. He sucked. I don't know. It was just not good any way around. Any way you look at it is like a bad message.
And I think the issue, it goes halfway on everything it sets up. It doesn't put itself in a place where it says, I, the filmmaker, and we, the people making this movie, are telling you this or believe this. And I think to some extent that might be wise. Don't take a stance on controversial issues when you're going to put something out very publicly, because then, you know what, you don't have to deal with any backlash. But also, at the same time, it now just feels like you're, you know, only doing things halfway, and you're just not willing to go all the way on it. And it just, I don't know, wasn't really for me.
Yeah, it almost reminded me of the movie The Hunt, which was very clearly a political movie that just leaned too far into nothing. Like, you know, I don't know. It was just, it could have been so good, and it just wasn't.
Yeah, and so, it just, whatever.
Yeah.
See it if it seems interesting to you, but I'm not going to really recommend this to people.
I would probably honestly give this like a 3 out of
3?
10.
I go a little higher just because at least it is thought-provoking in some regards and is interesting. But when I say a little higher, I'm saying like a 4 or a 5. This just, I don't know. And it's getting a lot of praise. I did do a quick scroll through Rotten Tomatoes just to see if like it earned a 92% because everyone was giving it a 5 out of 5. Very few people were saying this is a nailed-on masterpiece. But it seems like people are like, well, it's at least interesting.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's necessarily good enough, but at least I've common saying in movies is like, if you're going to be anything, be interesting, don't just be boring. And unlike the Retirement Plan we saw Nicolas Cage in earlier, this one at least wasn't boring.
I guess so.
Why does the zebra look the way it does?
All right, thank you for listening to this week's episode. Make sure you tune in every Monday for a new one and follow us on Instagram and TikTok at Nerd and Normie.
And if you're listening on YouTube, like and subscribe. And if you're on an audio platform, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps us out.
Thank you.
And thank you to Michael for helping out on this episode.
Woohoo!